So today we're still on Unit 5.2, and we're still continuing to talk about Plant STERNGRR, those life functions that all living things perform, and we're going to specifically be looking at plants. Today we'll start off on page 102. Now yesterday when we started off talking about Plant STERNGRR, those life functions, there's a couple examples I want us to look at first to review those topics and some of the things that we talked about there. So here's actually a picture of redwood trees. They're the tallest trees in the world, and some of them can grow to become over 250 feet tall. Now, if you look at this picture, if you can see it, there's these tiny little people that are actually climbing up the tree, and it's really, really big. Size of buildings is how big these trees are. But when you're looking at these trees, how is it that they grow so tall? How is it that they're able to bring their food up or down to the roots of the plant in order to grow? And how do they bring water up the plant to the leaves? So let's think about that for a second. If we're talking about the movement of nutrients and the movement of water, what are we talking about? Which life function, which STERNGRR word are we talking about? Well, here we are referring to transport. And do you guys remember what transports water? H2O. What transports water? Well, moving water from the roots up the plant all the way to the leaves would be the xylem, X-Y-L-E-M. And then moving food from the leaves where photosynthesis occurs, photosynthesis in the leaves, you have to move those nutrients down because the roots also have to grow. The roots also need that energy. And so what's going to move the food? Well, that was the phloem. One thing that helps me to remember phloem goes with food is that they both make the F sound. So phloem, food. Phloem, food. Okay. Another thing I did want us to look at really quick as a little bit of review is what if a plant grows very, very low? Here you have a picture of, it almost looks like someone's backyard in a forest, and you have all this moss, kind of green, spongy moss that's growing very low and on the floor. Why does it grow so low? Well, it turns out that moss is non-vascular. Turns out that moss is non-vascular, and if you are non-vascular, that means that you do not have no xylem or phloem. And this should make sense because xylem and phloem are vascular tissue, and if you're non-vascular, that means you don't have any of those. Well, if you don't have these special tissues or special cells to move water and food, that means you have to grow very low. And when you grow very low and you don't have these special cells, you actually will rely on diffusion. Water will move high to low due to the concentration gradient that we've talked about before. So take a minute, probably wanting to write down those examples in our notes from yesterday. Here's moss, and the other was the redwood tree having a lot of vascular cells, vascular tissue. Now moving on with today, so we're still going to look at how do plants perform these life functions. And plants actually must use hormones to regulate their growth in response to the environment. Here's one of our STERNGRR words, regulate. We are going a little out of order in our notes, but overall, when we're talking about regulation, we are going to be talking about hormones. One thing you want to write in here to remind yourself is that a hormone is a type of protein. Okay? Usually it's a type of protein. Sometimes it can be a type of lipid, type of fat. But hormones are going to help to control or regulate your body. So plants actually make 3 specific hormones that we need to know about. The first is called ethylene. And ethylene is actually a gas that is used to ripen fruit. Okay, ethylene is used to ripen fruit. So if you think about biting into a red strawberry that's really, really sour, it might not be fully ripe yet. Maybe there wasn't enough ethylene produced by the plant to ripen it. is cytokinins. Cytokinins are going to increase the rate of cell division. So when does this happen? Well, this would be when the plant is starting to grow, and there's going to be lots more of cytokinins when the plant is about to sprout from a seed into a little plant. The third hormone is auxin, and auxin actually allows for cells to elongate. And when I say elongate, you want to add this in, we mean to stretch or bend. Okay? To stretch or bend. So they can grow in response to stimuli. Stimuli is just something that requires a response or causes a response. Now, when plants are using this hormone auxin, they can actually respond to different stimuli. The different stimuli would be light, gravity, and touch. These are the stimuli. When a plant is using auxin, because they are going to continue to use this hormone, and they're going to grow in response to light, this is going to be known as phototropism. When plants grow in response to gravity, this is going to be known as gravitropism. And when plants grow in response to touch, this is known as thigmotropism. Okay? So tropism here, we'll notice that photo, gravity, and thigmo, light, gravity, touch. And this is the plant's reaction to those three stimuli, okay, to the stimulus. So if you're looking at this first picture here, in this first picture here, you actually have it on your notes as well. You have some light. The plant is bending towards the light. And here they're actually showing you that auxin is being produced to allow those plant cells to stretch and bend. Otherwise, that cell wall that's very rigid wouldn't allow them to bend and stretch. So above this picture, let's label this as an example of phototropism, because we are responding to light. Phototropism. And here, auxin allows bending. Okay. Phototropism, and then auxin allows the plant cell to bend. Now, moving along, we are going to move on to our next STERNGRR function. But before we do that, I did want to give you a couple more examples of some images and let you think about what hormone is being used. So first thing here, you have a little plant starting to sprout, and it's growing bigger and bigger, okay? Which hormone is being used the most in this picture that's allowing it to grow, allowing its cells to divide? Take a minute and look back. Okay. In this picture, cytokinins are being used. Cytokinins are allowing us to increase in cell division, allowing it to grow faster. A lot of times, plants, when they're starting to sprout, they have to grow really fast because they want to grow really fast, stretch out their roots, and when they stretch out their roots, it allows them to anchor themselves in the ground. If you don't anchor yourself in the ground quick enough, well then, if it rains really hard, you're going to get washed away. Okay, so that is one benefit of the cytokinins increasing the speed of cell division. Next, we have this little kind of spiral being created by this plant, kind of twisting and turning a little. What hormone is being used here? What is this an example of? Well, here's another example of auxin, right? Auxin is allowing that bending to happen. It's allowing those plant cells to stretch and that cell wall to kind of bend and be a little more flexible. And the last picture, we have bananas at 7 different stages, okay, from very, very green to yellow with those brown spots all over them. What hormone is here? This is actually going to be ethylene. Ethylene is allowing it to ripen. Interesting fact about ethylene is that a lot of commercial food producers or food providers are actually using ethylene to ripen fruit. They'll pick the banana when it's really, really green, or the apple, whatever the fruit is, and then they'll ship it to the warehouse. It might ripen a little bit as it gets shipped to the warehouse, but they're going to try to not let it ripen too much. And then right before they ship it out to the stores where you're going to buy your food from, they're going to spray it with some ethylene so that it becomes this nice yellow color. Okay? And a lot of times that's what people will do. They will artificially spray artificial ethylene gas, onto the plants to help them ripen before they get to you. The next bit of our notes is on nutrition, and nutrition is going to be going back to synthesis actually. For plants, our nutrition, or their nutrition, is going to be provided by the process of photosynthesis. So here you see the synthesis portion and the nutrition portion being related. And so plants are also considered to be autotrophs, which means they make their own food. And they are an important part of the food web. So autotroph, make own food. Okay? Autotrophs make their own food. So here in this picture again, you do see that light, you do see this photosynthesis occurring. And another thing here is that you also want to write that the important part of the food web, they're also known as producers. Okay? Producers is another word for autotrophs as well. And you do need to know all those terms, and we'll go back to those a little more when we talk about ecology. Next, here we're actually talking about growth and development. Okay. What I would do is I would actually go back after these set of notes and highlight those STERNGRR terms, just to make it really clear to you when you're looking back to review. But right here it says most plants begin their lives as seeds. The embryo is dormant until conditions are optimum. Optimum conditions is going to mean, optimum first of all means best. And a lot of times for a plant, the best environment will have to deal with the temperature, the water, and the light. The more of it you have, usually the better the conditions for the plant. So the embryo is dormant until conditions are optimum, and then juvenile plant will begin to grow and develop into a mature plant with roots, stems, and leaves. Plants without seeds, like mosses and ferns, have to use spores, which can dry out. So a seed is actually a form of an adaptation. Seeds have four main parts that are adaptations for better success in reproduction. For a seed, you have four main portions here. You have the seed coat for protection. You have the embryo, which will become the stem and the root of the plant. And then you have what's known as the endosperm, which is this food inside that's going to allow the plant to survive. Now the seed coat is going to sometimes protect it from other animals. It can also protect it from damage from the weather. But basically, when temperature, water, and light is at its optimum, then this little embryo will start to develop. That's why you can buy seed packets that have been at Lowe's for months. And you can grow them later on, okay? Because once you add that water, that's when it'll start to develop. I guess we're going to stop right here for today. And so make sure you do take a minute to fill in your summary box. Try to write 2 sentences using at least two vocabulary words.